Donald Trump has been blindsided as 10,000 federal lawyers have suddenly quit his regime. And Donald Trump is responding by saying exactly what my plan was. The New York Times and others are reporting on this mass exodus of 10,000 federal lawyers. I'll break down where that exodus is coming from in just a bit. But here's Donald Trump's post. The New York Times wrote a story entitled "Trump Administration Sees Striking Exodus of Legal Talent," as though that's a bad thing, when it's actually very good. The people that are leaving are radical left deep state lunatics who are destroying our country and weaponizing government. Many of them didn't leave, but were fired. The failing New York Times writes this, but makes it sound like it's a terrible thing, when actually it's just the opposite. We want people that will make America great again, not people that are trying to destroy our country, that were put in by Obama and Biden in many cases. They shouldn't have been representing the USA in the first place. Let them go on to bigger, better, and brighter things in the future. I fully support that and wish them well. Donald J. Trump. Here's the article. Trump administration sees striking exodus of legal talent. And the New York Times confirming numbers that we've talked about before. More than 10,000 federal lawyers. I think the number is actually closer to 15,000. But here's preliminarily what these numbers are showing. Like the Department of Education lost 53% of all lawyers. Housing Department, 40% of all lawyers. Interior, 27%. Labor, 27%. Energy, 26%. And you go on. And I mean, the Defense Department, 15%. While the Department of Justice shows 21%, one-fifth of the entire DOJ gone. What that number also doesn't include are the paralegals and the auxiliary staff that's needed to do these prosecutions, FBI agents. That's why I think when you add it up, the number is probably closer to 20,000. These are not radical left lunatics or whatever Donald Trump's saying. These are lawyers at the top of their field who worked at the Justice Department, got hired because of very competitive job application processes, devoted their life, or at least periods of their life, to public service, when many of these people could be working in large law firms making hundreds of thousands and in some cases millions of dollars a year to do public service because they truly believed in the mission, whether they're career people or whether they are there for limited periods of time before jumping back into the private sector. And now it's been completely gutted. It also talks about how a lot of state attorney general's offices are getting a lot of this talent. The article highlights Phil Weiser, who I interviewed recently. He's the Colorado AG, and he's seen an influx of these lawyers working for him. Similarly, when I had the California AG speak in my law class, he mentioned as well they're hiring so much talented people who have left the Department of Justice. So that's the state. It's an utter mess. And this is having consequences, of course. We've reported here on the MeidasTouch network, and when I do these hot takes with Harry Litman, that there are, thousands and thousands of cases that were filed against migrants, where the DOJ doesn't even have the staff to pursue them, or when they do pursue them, they have to bring in people who aren't even DOJ lawyers, and they've appeared before federal judges talking about how overwhelmed they are, how they don't know what they're doing. They weren't trained to even handle cases like this. We've seen a number of very high-profile cases. We've seen them get dismissed because of blatant violations of standards of conduct that take place in courts or that take place in the grand jury room. And it's often having lawyers enter grand jury rooms for prosecutors who don't know what the hell they're doing and are kind of just winging it and bringing that kind of Trumpian authoritarianism into our legal system. And those cases are getting dismissed. We've seen federal judge after federal judge across this country, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds from all different parties, including Trump appointees and Reagan appointees and George W. Bush appointees and others. And of course, Obama, Clinton, and Biden, saying that the presumption of kind of predictability, reliability that we had for the DOJ, we no longer have any presumptions that the DOJ is on the side of justice. We would always give a presumption that we could trust you in a grand jury room with grand jurors, That's why it was you alone with them and not the judge. We trusted you. What you would put on an affidavit would be accurate. We trusted that you would be on the side of good, not enter into collusive deals with the bad guys, that you wouldn't join forces with the oath keepers who were convicted of seditious conspiracy. We don't give you that presumption anymore. And that's a big, big deal because it doesn't just impact the high profile cases. It impacts all of the cases. The high profile ones are symbolic of what's happening more broadly. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack and podcast. Harry Litman was the former top federal prosecutor out of the Western District of Pennsylvania. He was a top federal prosecutor out of Maine justice. He clerked separately for two separate Supreme Court justices. I give his background because he knows this stuff. What we're seeing here is unprecedented in the federal government, to see this type of mass exodus of hardworking, really smart lawyers leaving and either being replaced by incompetent people or nobody. And so you and I predicted this a year ago. Now we're seeing the consequences, Harry, that the DOJ, and we shouldn't just talk about the DOJ, all of these agencies and departments that have lawyers, the lawyers are leaving. And so they don't know anymore how to do things, how to even pursue the basic processes. So it's corruption and incompetence combined. Harry, break it down.
Look, and if anything, it understates the impact, because if you look, there are pockets of places which have been most kind of taken over ideologically, where 20%, try 80% of the people who work there have been hollowed out. And we're not talking about small provincial offices, things like the public integrity section, the whole civil rights division, things that were the crown jewels of the Department of Justice. They have forced out so many people. And the other reason it understates is they have aimed their fire and made life impossible for exactly the leaders who have been there for years. The way the Department of Justice works is very much through the sort of eminent screes who are there and who give advice and judgment to everyone. And those are also the same people who are now appalled and just cannot stomach being there. So you have parts of the department that are completely at sea. And to put a third point on it, the people who remain are in fear and loathing of the brass, who will not talk to them and who slap them around basically if they don't get on the program of doing not the reason they came to the job, but the reason that now has been with the big banner hanging outside the Department of Justice, which I guarantee you, anyone who's been there for a few years just either wants to avoid or suppress an urge to vomit when they pass. It's just, especially in DC, a wasteland, point one. Point two, of course, we don't have to tarry on this. He is, Trump, a total ignoramus. The idea, these are all radical leftist, deep state lunatics. You know, he's hallucinating, or not even hallucinating. He's just bloviating in a Trumpian way. These really are and were the finest lawyers in the country. As you say, Ben, and this is how it used to be when I was U.S. attorney, Pittsburgh, not the biggest, center of the legal universe. Nevertheless, any opening, you had a stack of resume to the sky, and you had your pick of the finest credentialed folks who were now maybe in the finest law firms, but they yearned to be at the Department of Justice. So many people, you teach law school and you know this, go to law school wanting and hoping to do the right thing, and the satisfaction and privilege of getting up and being the lawyer for the United States is what it's worth, as you say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And by the way, to put the lie to what Trump is saying. The people graduate from DOJ and go on to whatever jobs they want in the industry. Whereas now we're getting reports of people, including Republicans, who are saying, I better not go there, because if I do, my whole career, it's going to be a black mark on my resume, because this is known to be a complete corrupt and distortions the wrong, complete setting on its head what the Department of Justice is supposed to be, which is a place where justice is done without fear or favor. And now both fear and favor completely control. Finally, I just want to point out, when this comes up, it's a tragedy for the people who are there. It's revolting. I was just talking earlier today with Mark Elias about the special contempt for Todd Blanche, who came through the system and knows exactly what DOJ is about. And in the Faustian bargain he's making, he is corrupting it every day and day in and day out. But the biggest victims here, in a sense, are the American public. There was good reason that DOJ lawyers could stand up and say, I'm here from the government. They had extra responsibilities, but they got extra credibility, and that aided in their mission of really, getting the bad guys off the street and doing the right thing in case after case. And now juries don't trust them, judges don't trust them. And so even for the 80-90% of the work that remains the same, they don't have that tailwind that really was the flip side of being honorable, sticking to the principles of federal prosecution, really taking your duty of candor to the court with utmost seriousness. Now all of that has been thrown out the window to, again, I'll use the same word for a wasteland. And there is no way except for the craziest MAGA person who doesn't want to go to jail, that it's good for anybody except people who are not being prosecuted and put in jail as a result.
Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds. Search Talking Feds. It's where I get my legal news from. Harry makes me smarter, and he'll make you smarter too. Get all your info at Talking Feds. Subscribe to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel as well, but definitely go to Talking Feds. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thank you, Ben.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.